Welcome to the How to DIY Tiling video. Our first project is going to be tiling a conventional bathroom. We'll be using extruded plastic strips around the window profile. Begin by covering the sanitary ware with dust sheets to avoid any damage, such as surface scratches. Now run a scraper over the areas to be tiled. This will remove any protruding lumps. Now finish the preparation with a medium gauge glass paper. At this stage it's worth mentioning that certain tiles are still sold in imperial measurements. Therefore, when measuring up the area to be tiled, you may find it useful if you take the measurements in both metric and imperial. To work out the number of tiles you'll need, measure the height to which you want the tiles to finish. Then measure the width of the walls, remembering to omit any items to be tiled around, for example the bath, door or windows. Having taken all the measurements, your tile merchant or distributor should be able to advise you exactly how many square yards or meters you will need. If the area you're tiling includes a window recess, this should be your starting point. From the bottom of the window, square around the room with a spirit level and pencil. Use plain timber for this purpose. Check for squareness and mark the truest edge. Now fix the timber to the squared line with nails and a hammer. Now don't drive the nails completely into the wood, as they will need to be removed later. Measure the window aperture, find halfway, and mark. Now measure and find the middle of a tile. Mark with a pencil. Match this up with the halfway measurement you've just found on the window aperture. Dry lay the tiles across the window ledge, spacing with the tile spacers that you'll be using. Mark the wall where the last tile finishes, and with a spirit level, draw a vertical line up the wall. This is your starting point. Use a good quality waterproof tile adhesive when tiling bathrooms or shower rooms. Apply the adhesive to the wall using a tile adhesive spreader. Always wear protective rubber gloves when tiling. Make sure you apply the adhesive evenly. And only prepare small areas at any one time, as the adhesive will cure relatively quickly. Remove any excess adhesive from the spreader. Now start tiling from your vertical line, making sure that the tiles are firmly bedded into the adhesive. Insert the tile spacers between the tiles and close up any gap between them. The spacers will give you uniform joints throughout. Continue to tile along the horizontal line, spacing as necessary. Begin to tile the second row, spacing as before. Here we're going to use a decorative tile to finish off at this height. Again, space as required. Make sure that all the tiles are laying flat against the wall. Remove any excess with a damp sponge. Measure your finished tile height. Transfer this to any external 90-degree angles. Place the tiling trim on top of the skirting board. Mark the finished height onto the trim and cut. Cut the trim with either a junior hacksaw or dedicated tile trim cutters. Apply the tiling adhesive along the edge profile and position the trim. When it is in the desired position, squeeze firmly into the adhesive. Remove any excess with a spatula. Now apply more adhesive as you did before, remembering not to tackle too big an area at any one time. Again, tile along the horizontal batten, working from the tile trim with a full tile towards the corner. Always try to make sure that any cut tiles are in the corners and not on the external angles. Measure the gap between the last full tile and the corner. Mark this measurement onto a full tile. When using any form of tile cutting equipment, it's important to wear eye protection. Using a straight edge, score the tile and snap. Apply the tile adhesive and fix into place. Repeat this same process for all the tiles that need cutting. Remove the horizontal timber support. Now square off the finished height around the window profile. Cut a 45-degree angle in the tile trim. Position this on the window profile. Use a tile to give the correct trim position. Mark the vertical finish point and the horizontal point. Cut the trim to length. On another piece of trim, cut another 45-degree angle. Place this against the window profile to determine the position and length. Mark the other 45 degrees and cut. Remember to allow for the tile thickness. Place a tile on the windowsill and mark the position of the trim. Repeat the same process with the third piece. Put the lengths to one side, as they will be required shortly. Now you can tile down to the finished surface. The cut edge must be away from the full tile. Mark the height of the tile to be cut with a pencil. Now cut. Here you can see how to cut a tile using a tile cutting machine. Again, remember to wear eye protection. It's worth mentioning that some tile distributors will hire the tile cutting machines on a daily basis. Check that the cut tile fits. Mark further tiles, cut and fit. Spread the adhesive on the back of the tile and fit to the wall. Remember, the cut edge goes into the internal angle. Space with cardboard or spacers to obtain the correct spacing with the tile above. Continue the same process around the bath. Now we can concentrate on the window profile. Fit the trim across the bottom of the windowsill. Mark and cut sufficient tiles, apply adhesive and fix. Space the tiles as necessary. Fix the trim to the vertical profiles as before, ensuring enough overlap to cover the tile at right angles behind. Mark and cut tiles and fix. Space and adjust tiles as necessary. Now tile into the window recess, remembering to match up the tile joints. Here we're going to snip a tile. Using a set square, score the tile glaze. With snippers or pliers, nibble away at the area to be removed. Now don't try to nibble too big a piece at any one time. This can be a tricky process. Take great care when tidying up the corner. Clean up the rough edges with a coarse-grade emery cloth. Now, it's time to grout. Use a good quality waterproof grout. Mix it as per the maker's instructions. Apply a small quantity of grout to your grout applicator. Fill all of the tile joints. Again, only attempt to grout small areas at any one time, as the grout will usually start to cure within a couple of minutes. Wipe it over with a damp sponge. Leave the grout to dry and buff up with a lint-free cloth. Although you'll have used a waterproof adhesive and grout, it will still be necessary to seal around your sanitary ware with silicone. Mask off with tape using a 5mm gap top and bottom. Apply a good quantity of silicone between the masking tape. Smooth it out with a dampened spatula immediately. This will form a smooth and tidy radius. Leave it for a few minutes and then remove the masking tape. Leave the silicone to dry for 24 hours and you now have a watertight seal. Floor tiling. Measure the width of the room at one end. Find the halfway mark and mark with a nail. Repeat this process at the other end of the room. String a chalk line between the two nails and mark the center line of the room. This will be your starting point. Dry lay the tiles from the center line, spacing as required. This is to make sure that there are no awkward cuts around the outside of the room. Floor tiles are generally thicker than wall tiles and are more difficult to cut. Therefore, you need to avoid cutting narrow slithers off floor tiles. Whereas wall tile adhesive is usually pre-mixed, floor tile adhesive generally comes in powder form and needs to be mixed with water. Follow the maker's instructions. Spread the adhesive from the center line towards the outside walls. Only attempt to lay a small area at any one time. Make sure the tiles are firmly bedded into the adhesive. Continue to lay down along the center line, spacing as required. Always make sure you have a good quantity of tiles and spacers to hand. Spread further adhesive and lay tiles from the center line to the outside walls as before. Cut the perimeter tiles with the tile cutting machine and lay. Here there's enough room to ease the tiles underneath the skirting board. This does make the finished floor look much neater. As with wall tiling, wipe over with a damp sponge to remove any excess adhesive. Once you've completed laying the tiles from the center line to one outside wall, lay tiles from the center line to the other outside wall. Where perimeter tiles are the same size, from a full tile, cut both sides if the section to be used is less than half the width of a full tile. Remember, the cut edge should always be against the wall and not next to the full tile. Fix and space. Mix the grout as per the maker's instructions. It's worth mentioning that tile grout is available in different colours. Choose the colour that matches your tiles. Apply the grout in small quantities. Make sure all the joints are filled. Wipe off any excess with a damp sponge and buff it up with a lint-free cloth. Over-tiling. It's not necessary to strip old tiles off if you decide to revamp your kitchen or bathroom. Simply degrease the existing tiled surface using a good quality cleanser. Scrub with a small brush. And finally, wipe down. Apply a suitable tile adhesive and fix the tiles. Remembering to space as with ordinary wall tiling. Grout as before, sponge down and buff up.